I never expected to end up like this. Branches whipped my face as I barreled through the woods, the moon barely illuminating the trees around me. My lungs burned, legs trembled, and sweat slicked my back. The night pulsed with strange sounds, clicking, rustling, whispering. The trees loomed like monstrous sentinels, their branches clawing at me as I stumbled through the underbrush. My foot snagged on a root, and I fell hard, my palms scraping against damp earth. I bit back a cry, struggling to my feet, but the noise was getting closer. A guttural hiss sliced through the air. I ducked behind a moss-covered stump, heart racing so fast, I thought it might explode. I pressed my body flat to the ground, hands shaking as I tried to quiet my breathing. Something was out there. I could hear it moving, soft, deliberate clicks that made my skin crawl. A dragging sound, like claws or limbs too long for their own bodies. I dared a glance around the stump. In the moonlight, just beyond the trees, something shifted. I couldn't make out its form, just shadows moving where they shouldn't. I clenched my teeth to keep from screaming. My breath caught in my throat. The forest around me had gone deathly still. No insects, no birds, just the rhythmic, unnatural click-click of something hunting. My fingers gripped the stump like a lifeline. One wrong move, one snapped twig, and I knew I'd be dead. Or worse. That's when I heard the voice. Low, whispered, my name. It knew my name. Just hours ago, I was on the interstate, driving alone, halfway across the country. My eyes were heavy, the lines on the road blurring. I needed to stop. I spotted a gas station just off exit 432, a flickering neon sign barely visible in the twilight. I pulled in. The place looked like it hadn't seen a customer since the 90s. Dust clung to the windows. The pump was old school. No digital readouts, just the rhythmic clunk of the meter turning. Inside, the air was stale and smelled like mildew. That's where I met him. The attendant stood behind the counter, wearing a grease-stained flannel shirt and a trucker cap pulled low. His skin was pale, eyes sunken but alert, too alert. He stared at me like he'd been waiting. The air suddenly felt heavier, harder to breathe. My chest tightened as I looked at him. "Lookin' for a place to sleep?" he asked in a voice like dry leaves. I nodded. "Yeah, anything nearby?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Take exit 436, just a few miles up. You'll find a town there, Graywick. Got a motel. Folks there'll take good care of you." Something in his tone felt off, but I was too tired to argue. I thanked him, bought a stale soda, and headed back to the road. Exit 436. The ramp was barely lit. The road that followed twisted through dense trees, their branches arching over like skeletal arms. I turned on the radio, trying to keep myself awake. The static cleared just long enough for a voice to break through. Another disappearance reported near Route 436. That makes 5 in the last 3 months. Authorities urge travelers to avoid the area until further notice. Local police have yet to issue an official. The station crackled again, dissolving into white noise. I twisted the knob, searching for clarity, but only got snatches of broken phrases. Never found the bodies. Something in the woods. Not human. Then silence. A chill crept down my spine. I glanced at the exit sign flashing by, 436. Then, out of nowhere, the town emerged. Graywick. Old, dusty, forgotten. Cobwebs laced every street lamp and awning. The buildings sagged with rot, their paint long since surrendered to time. There wasn't a single neon sign, just hand-painted ones that creaked in the breeze. As I drove deeper into the town, a deep feeling of isolation wrapped around me like a second skin. It felt like I'd crossed some invisible threshold, like I wasn't just lost, but forgotten. The knot in my throat felt larger in that moment, growing with every passing second. I parked and began to walk, looking for the motel. That's when I noticed them. The townsfolk. They stared. Men in suspenders with gray, wiry hair, women in faded dresses, children with pale, glassy eyes. They didn't speak, just watched me. Their movements were slow, jerky, like puppets unsure of their strings. As I passed a store window, I caught my own reflection, and behind me, one of the townspeople stood directly in the center of the road, perfectly still, eyes locked on mine through the glass. When I turned to confront them, they were gone. I reached the Graywick Motel, a squat building with flickering porch lights. Inside, the lobby smelled of must and decay. The clerk handed me a key without a word. For some reason, I didn't question it, just accepted the strangeness of this town. Room 7. Later, I walked to the diner. It was the only place with lights on. The bell above the door jingled, but nobody turned. Conversations halted. Every face turned toward me. Blank stares. No smiles. I sat in the corner. A waitress, tall, thin, long limbs, brought me meatloaf and potatoes. I hadn't ordered yet. "On the house," she said. I barely touched the food. Something about the way they all watched, the way they chewed in unison, it made my skin crawl. Then the bell above the door jingled again. A woman stepped inside. Not old like the others, young, pale, beautiful in a way that didn't feel right. Her black hair hung down in a straight curtain, and her eyes, they were too wide, too still. She didn't sit, didn't speak. She just walked slowly to a booth across from me, turned and stared. Not at the menu, not around the room, at me. Her gaze was unblinking. Hungry. Minutes passed. She hadn't moved. I cleared my throat and looked down at my plate, then back up. She was closer now, just one booth away. Her head tilted, just slightly, as if studying me, measuring. I felt like an insect under glass. Then she smiled. Her teeth were needle thin. I stood and left. Back in my room, I locked the door and turned on the old television. Static, then the local news. Reports continue of travelers gone missing along rural highways, last seen near exit 436. My blood turned to ice. My hand trembled as I turned the volume down. The screen flickered. Then it cut out completely. A scratching noise at the window. I jolted, peering through the curtain. Nothing. But the scratching persisted. Then a voice, whispering, indistinct, calling. I backed away and bolted the window shut. The wallpaper seemed to ripple. The air grew dense, heavy with something sickly sweet. My skin itched, crawled. Every surface of the room seemed to pulse faintly, like the building itself was breathing. Then, movement from the closet. I approached, heart pounding, and threw it open. Nothing, except strands of silk, thick, fresh. I slammed the door shut and backed away, trembling. I turned to the bathroom mirror and stared at myself, pale, dripping sweat. Then another voice, whispering, indistinct, calling. I grabbed the flashlight from my bag and eased open the back door. A narrow path led into the woods, just behind the motel. The trees groaned. Something compelled me forward. Something beyond my control. Cobwebs. First, small ones brushing my arms. Then thicker, stickier, rope-like strands that clung to my clothes. I tried to push through, but they got worse. Some were waist-high, others as wide as a doorframe, and then I saw them. Bodies. Dozens, maybe more, suspended from trees, wrapped tight in cocoon-like silk. Their faces were still visible beneath the transparent sheen, eyes wide in eternal horror. Some were fresh. Others had decomposed, their mouths locked in soundless screams. My legs buckled. I turned to run, but more webs closed in behind me. I hacked at them, desperate, until I stumbled into a clearing. There, rising like a grotesque cathedral, was a tree, if you could call it that. Twisted limbs stretched toward the sky, coated in thick webbing. At its base, a pit, dark, deep, crawling. Something emerged. A towering figure, half human, half arachnid. 8 eyes, elongated limbs. A human face stretched unnaturally over its grotesque form. It clicked its mandibles, and from the trees, more dropped down, crawling, hissing. They were the townsfolk, all of them. Mutated, twisted, hungry. I ran. Webbing snapped at my heels. Claws slashed at the air behind me. One of them screeched, a piercing, otherworldly cry that echoed through the trees. I burst from the forest and reached my car, fumbling with the keys, shaking. The engine roared to life. Tires screamed. In the rearview mirror, they chased me. Dozens of them, skittering, leaping from tree to tree, keeping pace. Then, a thud. Something landed on the hood. Her. The girl from the diner. But now, monstrous, eyes black as pitch, fangs glistening, her limbs cracked, jointed wrong, twitching. She slammed her face against the windshield, mandibles gnashing. I swerved. She clung on. I hit the brakes. She flew forward. I slammed my foot down on the gas, pressing the pedal to the floor as fast as I could, and ran her over. She rose again, this time with more determination, her grotesque face wearing a permanent twisted smile. I drove, fast, faster than I thought possible. Behind me, they chased, through trees, over rooftops, skittering. Finally, the highway. The clicking faded, the trees thinned, but the bite on my arm throbbed. My eyes were changing. In the mirror, something smiled back. My vision blurred for a moment, then sharpened in unnatural ways. I could see too much. Every detail, every shadow. I blinked, and 8 pupils flickered within each eye, twitching independently. A scream built in my throat, but never left. The puncture on my arm pulsed, dark veins crawling further across my skin. My fingers ached, joints cracked. Something writhed beneath the surface. And yet, I was still me. I pulled over and turned off the engine, sitting in the dark. "I can fight this," I whispered. "I have to." But somewhere deep in the woods behind me, the clicking had started again, and in my bones I knew. The regret began to build inside me like a massive weight pressing down on my chest. Soon, I would feel the urge to hunt, to trap, to feed. I turned the key in the ignition again. The engine sputtered, then roared to life once more. I should have driven straight to a hospital. I should have called for help. Instead, I took the next exit. Not by choice, by instinct, by the